Tidbits from TNT, Monday, May 5, 2025. Listen to the full version on the official dinarreport.com website and become our supporter on Patreon. Tishwash. Al-Sudani chairs a meeting of the heads of the boards of directors of Iraqi banks. Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani chaired a meeting on Monday with the chairman of the boards of directors of Iraqi banks. The Prime Minister's media office stated in a statement received by Al-Maluma agency that Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani chaired a meeting with the chairman of the boards of directors of Iraqi banks. Tishwash. The foreign minister arrives in Riyadh on an official visit. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Fuad Hussein, arrived in the Saudi capital, Riyadh, on Sunday, May 4, 2025. On an official visit aimed at strengthening bilateral relations and continuing consultation and coordination between the two brotherly countries. The minister was received upon arrival by Deputy Foreign Minister Walid bin Abdul Karim al-Khariji and the Ambassador of the Republic of Iraq to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Ms. Safiya Talib al-Sahel. Mr. Fuad Hussein is scheduled to meet with his Saudi counterpart, Faisal bin Farhan, to discuss ways to strengthen relations between Iraq and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. In addition to discussing regional and international developments, the challenges facing the region, and ways to support joint Arab action. Tishwash. Iraq is in the crosshairs of international negotiations. Negotiations by major powers shape the contours of crises or opportunities for a breakthrough. Baghdad today, Baghdad. Political and strategic affairs researcher Muhammad Ali al-Hakim explained on Monday, May 5, 2025, that the ongoing negotiations between the United States and Iran cast a heavy shadow over Iraq, given the direct and influential influence the two countries have on the Iraqi scene. Al-Hakim told Baghdad today, U.S.-Iranian relations are among the most complex international relations, and any shift in their course will have a direct impact on Iraq, whether positive or negative, depending on the outcome of these negotiations. He pointed out that the success of the negotiations will have several positive effects on Iraq, including easing regional tensions, which will reduce the risk of a new conflict and enhance the chances of peace. The economic situation will also improve if sanctions on Iran are lifted, which will open the way for Iraq to expand its trade and economic cooperation with Tehran. He added that achieving consensus between Washington and Tehran could also lead to increased international support for Iraq from both sides, which would contribute to the country's stability and stimulate development and investment, as well as reduce the severity of the internal political divide, and improve Iraqi-American relations, thus enhancing Iraq's chances of receiving more financial and political support. In contrast, al-Hakim warned of the repercussions of the failure of the talks, stressing that it could rekindle tensions in the region, placing Iraq at the heart of new crises, with the potential for its economy to decline due to continued sanctions on Iran and the difficulty of engaging economically with it. He also warned that the failure of the negotiations could exacerbate political tensions within Iraq and intensify polarization between forces affiliated with the Iranian axis and those loyal to the United States, potentially opening the door to new internal crises. Al-Hakim concluded his remarks by saying, despite 3 rounds of indirect talks between Tehran and Washington, mediated by Oman, Iraq's fate remains tied to the outcome of these negotiations. Their success serves Iraq's national security interests, while their failure could bring further crises. The United States and Iran have been locked in a complex political and economic conflict for years, beginning with the Iranian Revolution in 1979 and culminating with Washington's withdrawal from the nuclear agreement in 2018 and imposing severe sanctions on Tehran. With tensions escalating in the Middle East, Iraq has become an indirect arena for this conflict, given the presence of U.S. forces and Iran's extensive political and economic influence there. Despite attempts at calming the situation through international mediation, most notably Omani mediation, negotiations remain at a standstill, with Iraq remaining the country most affected by the fluctuations in relations between Tehran and Washington. Tishwash. The Minister of Finance breaks her silence on the withdrawal of tax deposits. Finance Minister Taif Sami explained, on Sunday, May 4, 2025, the mechanism for withdrawing tax deposits and converting them into final revenues. Sami said in a statement to the official agency, followed by Baghdad Today, that the special account for tax deposits opened at the Central Bank of Iraq in the name of the Ministry of Finance. Accounting Department, which concerns the amounts collected from taxpayers, most of which are considered final revenue for the state treasury, tax revenues, according to the applicable laws. Indicating that these amounts are temporarily deposited in an intermediate account, which is the tax deposits account, until the final tax accounting procedures are completed by the taxpayers and the General Tax Authority. She added, in light of this, it is determined whether the tax accounting is equal to the amount paid by him as deposits. The deposit amounts are reflected in the final revenue. However, if the tax accounting is greater than the amount paid, the taxpayer pays the difference to the public treasury. However, if the tax accounting is less than the amount paid by the taxpayer, the difference is returned to the taxpayer. She continued, all remaining amounts are reflected in this account after completing the tax accounting as a final revenue for the state treasury, tax revenues. Noting that, withdrawing tax deposit amounts is a normal procedure according to Cabinet Resolution No. 294 of 2025. As these amounts are considered final revenue for the state treasury as the final result of tax accounting. The Cabinet Resolution, in its 15th regular session held on April 15, 2025, included approval to authorize the Minister of Finance to withdraw tax deposit amounts that are less than 5 years old, amounting to 3,045,007,500,252 dinars, to finance and pay the salaries of April and subsequent months deposited in the Ministry of Finance's account at the Central Bank of Iraq, 70,019, which it will deposit later according to the state's overall need, provided that the cash settlement is made monthly. When requested by reversing the deposit amount from the actual revenues collected monthly when conducting the tax accounting, the Minister of Finance explained that the procedure is normal to maximize resource revenues and control them of all kinds, indicating that most taxpayers do not visit the departments to complete their tax accounting dues, with the aim of evading the imposed tax. She stressed that the ministry has lists of the names, numbers, and amounts of taxpayers and companies that owe money at the General Tax Authority and the Accounting Department, to refer to in the event that taxpayers visit the authority. Sami pointed out that the remaining amounts reflect 1. Upon receipt of amounts from taxpayers before the final settlement, estimation of the tax amount, from the bank account to the tax deposit account, taxpayer. 2. Upon final settlement with the taxpayer. If the final tax settlement amount is equal to the amount of deposits paid, the entry shall be as follows. From the tax deposit account, taxpayer, to the final revenue account, tax revenue. B. If the final tax settlement amount is greater than the amount paid as deposits, the taxpayer shall pay the difference as a final revenue to the state treasury according to the following entry. From the bank account, difference amount, from the taxpayer to the final revenue account, tax revenue. She added, the amounts of tax deposits paid by the taxpayer are reflected as final revenue according to the following entry. From the account, tax deposits, taxpayer. To the account, tax revenues. C. If the final tax settlement is less than the amount paid by the taxpayer, the difference amount shall be returned to the taxpayer, and the remaining amount shall be reflected in the final revenue according to the following compound entry. From the account, tax deposits, the taxpayer. To the aforementioned account, final revenue, tax revenues, account, bank, the difference that shall be returned to the taxpayer. The Council of Ministers decided in its 15th regular session held on April 15, 2025 to approve the following. 1. Authorizing the Minister of Finance to withdraw the amounts of tax deposits that are not more than 5 years old, amounting to 3,045,700,500,252 dinars, to finance and pay the salaries of the month of April and subsequent months deposited in the Ministry of Finance's account at the Central Bank of Iraq, 70,019, which it will deposit later according to the need for the total state, provided that the cash settlement is carried out monthly. When requested by reversing the amount of deposits from the actual revenues collected monthly when conducting the tax settlement. 2. The ministries, entities not affiliated with a ministry, governorates and governorate councils shall implement the contents of the Ministry of Finance's Circular No. 36, S. 357 dated the 8th of April 2025, attached. For the purpose of expediting tax accounting and settlement procedures within a maximum of 10 days starting from the date of issuance of this decision. 3. Holding accountable those who failed to implement the provisions of the Income Tax Law, 113 of 1982 as amended. And delaying the settlement of financial liabilities resulting from the delay in tax accounting and financing all tax revenue amounts and the amount of tax deposit settlement on a timely basis. 4. The General Tax Authority shall impose the fines stipulated in the provisions of paragraph 4 of Article 56 of the aforementioned Income Tax Law. Mo. Julie Andrews turning 79. This is hysterical. To commemorate her birthday, actress, vocalist Julie Andrews made a special appearance at Manhattan's Radio City Music Hall for the benefit of the AARP. One of the musical numbers she performed was My Favorite Things from the legendary movie, Sound of Music. Here are the lyrics she used. Sing it. If you sing it, it's especially hysterical. Botox and nose drops and needles for knitting, walkers and handrails and new dental fittings. Bundles of magazines tied up in string. These are a few of my favorite things. Cadillacs and cataracts, hearing aids and glasses, Polydent and Fixodent and false teeth and glasses. Pacemakers, golf carts and porches with swings. These are a few of my favorite things. When the pipes leak, when the bones creak, when the knees go bad. I simply remember my favorite things, and then I don't feel so bad. Hot tea and crumpets and corn pads for bunions. No spicy hot food or food cooked with onions, bathrobes and heating pads and hot meals they bring. These are a few of my favorite things. Back pain, confused brains and no need for shinin, thin bones and fractures and hair that is thinnin', and we won't mention our short shrunken frames. When we remember our favorite things. When the joints ache, when the hips break, when the eyes grow dim, then I remember the great life I've had, and then I don't feel so bad. Listen to the full version on the official dinarreport.com website and become our supporter on Patreon. Source: dinarrecaps.com